Where were you going, Macy? Where were you going? I got something. Look at there. Look at there. I got something. I got something for you. I got something for you. I got it. You want that? There we go. Did that make you happy? Did that make you happy? Okay. All right. You want another one? There's another one. That was tasty, wasn't it? Yum, yum, yum. Hello, everyone. Peppermint here. Welcome to the 8th episode of Newbie Canner. Newbie Canner is a series on my channel that shows my experiences of being a new canner. You'll see the things that I do right and the things that I do wrong. And the things that I do wrong will be corrected and a lesson will be learned, and you can learn from these series how to can. So this week I will be showing you how I canned corn from a frozen bag from the grocery store into pint jars. I will also tell you how you could can them in quart jars as well. And this is actually the easiest way to can corn, is to can the corn that comes in the bags out of the frozen food department. And the frozen foods at your grocery store, they are picked when they are at their peak, and there's no additives to them that I can tell. Sodium is 0, and it is like 000 all the way down. It appears as if they just put it in the bag and freeze it. Anyway, if you were to can corn, fresh corn, there would be a whole lot more work that you would have to do. You would have to cut the corn off the cob, and to keep there from being a lot of waste, you could actually do the cream corn too if you did it fresh, but I just have the kernels, and that's all I'm going to do today. Maybe I'll do the other in a future video. That sounds like it would be good if I could get my hands on some fresh corn. Okay, we're going to get started with the video, but before we do that, how about giving me a big old thumbs up and subscribing to this channel? Do you know that the subscribe button is red now, but whenever you click on it, it changes colors? What color does it change to? Leave me a comment what color it changes to. So, here's the video. So I bought some frozen corn from Food Line, which is our local grocery store. It was $1.99 for 2 pounds. So I bought 11 pounds of frozen corn. So I'm going to start a pot of water to boil, and I'm going to fill my 23 quart Presto Pressure Canner. It calls for 3 quarts of water, and I'm going to go ahead and put my temperature on medium just to get it warmed up and ready for some hot jars. So now I am rinsing the corn, mostly so that it can come closer to room temperature. I have had some of the corn in the refrigerator, probably for about 24 hours. Here's a few utensils that I'm going to be using. I have my funnel and my debubbler, my pinchy grabby thing, and I have some hot pads and some vinegar to wipe the jars with, a place to put my boiling water. So now the water is boiling and my jars are in the oven. They've been in there for 10 minutes at least on 180 degrees. Okay, the jars are sterilized, and that's how I did sterilize them, is in the oven. However, it is not required by the USDA anymore. As long as you are going to be processing for at least 10 minutes. You don't have to sterilize anything because everything will be sterilized in the canner as you're processing. I'm going to fill up my jars. I need 1-inch headspace for the corn and 1-inch headspace for the water. And I am just filling these jars up. Now I'm just trying to get them all even, and if there's more in a jar that should be, then I'm moving it over to a jar that may not have enough. Okay, I'm putting a 1/4 teaspoon of pink Himalayan salt in each jar. Salt has nothing to do with the preservation of the food in this case. You can use up to a 1/2 teaspoon in a pint jar. I'm using a 1/4 teaspoon because that's just my preference. You don't have to use any salt at all. And if you're using quart-sized jars, then you can use up to a teaspoon of salt. And the salt either needs to be canning salt, pickling salt. Kosher salt is a good substitute. But in this video, I am using pink Himalayan salt. That's just my preference. The reason why you want to use uniodized salt is that iodized salt will make your water in your jar appear cloudy. Now I'm putting my boiling water in the jars, and I'm leaving a 1-inch headspace. I'm trying, or at least that's what I'm trying to do. Okay, now I'm debubbling. This is very important. If you don't debubble, it'll affect your headspace, and it may or may not cause your jars to seal. And then this gadget, it also has these little tiers on it that helps you to measure the headspace. And so that's what I'm doing. I'm measuring the headspace and debubbling at the same time. Okay, I have a little bit of white distilled vinegar and a paper towel, and I'm just wiping off the rims of the jars. You want to be sure that your rims are very clean, especially the top part. And this is what I'm using, Golden Harvest lids and Bernardin lids. The Bernardins are vintage lids. They are pretty old, and I just like to experiment. And so I use some of my lids that I know will seal, and then also I use some that are questionable because these are old. It's not that they're not a good brand, but they're old. Okay, I'm putting my rings on, to finger tight. Now, what is finger tight? It is not super tight because you have to have the oxygen to creep out. That's part of what causes it to seal. So what I've been doing is I've been using my pinky finger and my thumb, and that's about the right amount of pressure. I also want to add to this that I use olive oil on my rings whenever I store them, because olive oil, a coat of oil, helps your rings to not rust or tarnish. And that's what I've been doing. I've been trying that out to see how it works. But whenever you go to screw on your lids with your finger and your thumb, in addition to having a light touch, your finger and your thumb will slip. And so I end up going as tight as I can, but you see my fingers slipping on the ring. Now this is another experiment. The jar is what I'm experimenting with. It is a commercial jar. It probably had jelly in it. Okay, right here in the video, I am showing you the importance of inspecting your lid before you place it on top of your canner to start processing. First of all, you want to look at the gasket in your lid. That's the rubbery part that goes on the inside. And you want to look through the steam pipe. That is that little thing that sticks up in the top, and there's a hole in it, and you need to look through that hole and be sure that you can play peekaboo with somebody looking through there. Also, on the bottom of the lid, in that part, in that area, there are horizontal holes that go through the bolt that is on the back side of that. And you want to be sure that the lock will go back and forth. That is the thing that I'm jiggling, moving back and forth. That lets you know that there's pressure in the pot. And whenever it goes up, it locks so that you can't open it. You also want to check the plug, that little small rubber plug. If your pressure in your canner should become too high, that plug is supposed to shoot out and release the pressure in the canner. But you do want to check your lid really good. So now I am increasing the heat to almost high, and then we're going to start looking for a steady stream of steam. This is what the steady stream of steam will look like. And you let that steam release for 10 minutes. It's very important that you do this. This is part of the processing time. And so you really do need to do this. And it also expels the oxygen in the canner. And oxygen is food's worst enemy. And so you want to get rid of it. Okay, it's been 10 minutes. And what I'm doing now is I'm putting the weight, it's a 15 pounds of pressure weight on the steam pipe. At this point, I need to wait for the pressure to rise to 11 psi. That is because of my altitude. So if you want to know what your altitude is, then go on the internet, do a Google search, and you should be able to find that information. So I'm going to wait for it to get up to pressure, 11 psi for me. Just a couple seconds. There we go. I did not realize how heavy this canner would be whenever I went to pick it up. But boy, did I find out. Now, we are going to wait for the pressure to drop naturally. We're not going to do anything to make this pot cool down. It has to cool down all by itself, just like this. We are not going to take the lid off, and we are not going to take the weight off. We're just going to let it sit until the pressure goes all the way down to 0. Right now it's on 11. Okay, 10 minutes. Okay, at this point, I was supposed to remove that 15-pound weight. However, Danny, my hubby, distracted me with a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And so I forgot to remove the weight. But it all turned out all right. Okay, it's time to take the lid off now. The timer has went off. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to open the canner, and I'm going to hold the lid so that if any steam should shoot out, then it will go away from me and not towards me. And also, you want to have on some gloves, some pot holder gloves or something on your hands, because water will drip off of the lid whenever you're taking it off, and that is hot, I found out. And also, watch out if you're barefoot, because it will also drip on the floor. That's happened to me. I burned my little Tootsie. But please be positively sure that you open the canner so that the steam does not get into your face. And that's what I'm doing. Do you think I would want to mess up all this awesomeness? Got 15 pint size jars, 4 12-ounce jars, and 1 8-ounce jar that's halfway filled up. Okay, now here's a discussion between myself and hubby. Okay, it's the next day, and it looks like all but 1 jar sealed. This jar right here is an experiment jar. It is a commercial jar. What that means is that this was probably a grape jar or something, had grape jelly in it or something. And you can see that the lip, the rim, is not the same as these others. So the ring, when it went on, it would screw on, and then you could keep turning it, and then it would keep starting over. But I just twisted it on and kept the lid on as much as, until it got as tight as it would go, and then I didn't push it any further. And it sealed. It did fine. But everybody did seal. There's no lids that you can smash up and down and make a clicking sound. And I have lifted every jar up like this, and they are holding. Let's see, how many did I get? Here's another experiment jar. This is a used lid. I used this back in March, and we used the carrots out of it, and then I used the same lid, and it's sealed as well, and it's holding just fine.
So how do you know if you can't use the lid?
Common sense, I guess. If the rubber part on the lid looks bad, like it's got any kind of imperfection in it, then you don't want to use it. If there's any rust on the flat here or on the ring, you don't want to use it. If you've used it about 7 or 8 times, you can try it, but it may not seal. But the best way to tell is to pick it up like this. And if it's got a good seal on it, then, why not use it?
What if it has a little bend right there from, taking it off of?
Well, if it seals, then it should be okay. But many times, if you see that before you put it on your jar, then you might want to not use it because it will cause the jar not to seal.
Okay.
And how many would get, Danny?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19 jars.
19 jars.
But call it 18 and a half.
Yeah, and these are 12 ounces. I got 1, 2, 3, 4 12-ounce jars. They're the perfect size for Danny and I, proportional wise. And so I like these jars, these 12-ounce jars. They're jelly jars actually, but the rest of them are pint size jars, just regular pint size jars. Except for the jelly jar, which is probably also a pint size jar. I also want to add that the vintage lids, the ones that were Bernardins, they are very old, possibly from the 70s or the 80s, but all of those sealed as well. I got a ton of those when I bought some jars from someone, and I don't want to throw them away because they're old, so I've been using them. What I do is I just inspect the lids really well. I look on the underside of the lid where the rubber part is, and if there's anything that doesn't look right with that rubber, I won't use it. And every now and then I'll find a lid that has some rust on it, and I don't use those as well. But these Bernardins, even though they're really old, they've been sealing, but they are not BPA free. Well, here's the end of the video. This is the part where I say, give me a big old thumbs up if you enjoyed my video. Please. I said please. Give me a thumbs up. And that subscribe button will change colors when you click on it. You won't tell me what color that it changes to? Okay. See you next week. Bye-bye.